the goal for today, boys and girls, is to be able to do this on our own. Hold on, I need to calibrate. All right, so we are going back and forth from the template with number lines to the problem set, okay?
Yep.
The first number we're going to round is 115 and 376 thousandths.
Okay.
But I don't see a hundredths place here. There is. Okay, who said it? Lauren, good job. She said just put 11 tenths. 11 tens. You agree?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so go ahead and do that. Great job thinking. Okay. Now, I'll take away the tens and turn them into ones.
100.
Right, 115 ones. Now remember, all we need this for is just the bottom of the number line. Then 1,153 tenths. Then 11,537 hundredths. Ooh, I put it in the wrong place. I just need a 7 here, don't I?
Yep.
Okay. Hope you didn't do it like I did. Okay. So all this is going to do is help us. Now when we move to the template, we're going to write these 3 words at the top of 3 number lines. Okay? We're just using the template because these are so small and squished together, and it's easier to work with it if it's larger. So I'm going back to the template. First thing I want to do is write my actual up here. Whoops, I'm in highlighter. Actual and midpoint. $237 thousandths, is that what it is? 376 thousandths. Okay, so above your number lines, let's label them hundredths. What's the next one say? Ones? Ones and then tens. Okay. And JJ, you want to get the door, please? Okay. So we're going to round 115 and 376 thousandths 3 different times, okay? I'm going to look at that place value chart. Starting with the hundredths, what should I highlight?
6.
No? 11,537 hundredths. Everybody say it. 11,537 hundredths. So on my template, that goes at the bottom. So 11,000, here I go writing with the highlighter again. 11,537 hundredths. And I'm going to abbreviate hundredths. And then we need to decide how to write that with a decimal. So where's the decimal? Between what 2 numbers? 5 and 3. Is it going to move? No. So when I rewrite this in standard form, I will put the decimal between the 5 and the 3, but I won't write the whole number. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now a lot of times on the exit ticket, the kids wrote the actual number incorrectly. So then they had no chance of getting it right. Well, 50-50 chance, I guess. But most of the time they got it wrong. So what comes after 37? 38. So I can just write 115.38, 11,538 hundredths. And 115.38. Okay. You got that much done? Okay, don't skip writing something, because the more you practice, the easier this will be when you do it for a grade. So, Hemina, what's my midpoint here between 115.37 and 115.38? You're close, 375. So remember, always take the bottom number, copy it down, and then put what on the end?
5.
The 5. Good. Okay? So we have this all set up, ready. Now we know a midpoint, don't we? So 115.375. Which one's larger? The actual. So if the actual is larger, Hudson, where do I write it? Above or below the midpoint? Above. And my answer is at the top. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to write my answer with those 2 squiggle lines that mean rounds to. Rounds to 115.38. Okay, now we'll do the ones. Before we can do the ones, let's get our midpoint erased and the circle erased. And the kids that are gone today are going to really appreciate this updated video, because the last time I recorded it was when the 7th graders were in 5th grade.
Oh my God.
I know.
2 years ago.
Yes. And you know, I've came up with new ideas since then, haven't I?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look at the place value chart again. So if I'm rounding to the ones place, what should I highlight?
115.
115, and it's going to be 115 ones. I like the ones. What comes after 115?
116.
So every time, boys and girls, you write unit form, equal sign, and then standard form. Okay? Cesar, what's my midpoint? Now you can just think, what's halfway between 15 and 16? What's halfway between what's halfway between 15 and 16?
15 and 16.
Uh-huh. 15 point what?
15.5.
Right. So can I just take the same thing, only put the 100 in front of it? So halfway between 115 and 116 is 115.5. The whole numbers are what confuse us. We're really good at just sticking a 5 on the end of the bottom number, aren't we?
Yeah.
The whole numbers are confusing us though. So there's my midpoint. Where do I write it? I had some kids that didn't even write it on their exit ticket. So now what do I have? Which one's larger?
115.5. Oh.
The midpoint. Okay? If the midpoint's larger, I'm going to pull a stick. JJ, where do I write the actual? If the midpoint's larger,
You write it below it.
good. 376. And my answer this time, so 115.376 rounds to what?
To 160.
150, because I wrote it below. Right? Okay. So we have one more place value, the tens. Oops, went the wrong way. Am I ever going to find it? Okay. Tens. How many tens are there? 11 tens. So 11 tens in unit form. And Miguel, how do I write that in standard form? Anything times 10, add a 0 to the end. No, we don't need any points. It's a whole number. So just 110. Very good. Okay. And what comes after 11, boys and girls? 12. And write that in standard form, Jaden. How do I do it?
120.
Okay, now this is what is mixing kids up, the tens place, okay? So let's think about the number line. The number line in the classroom, okay? Are there any decimals on that number line?
No.
When you come up with whole numbers that aren't right next to each other, like 15 and 16 are right next to each other, so you'll have to add a decimal for your midpoint. But 110 and 120 are farther apart, aren't they? There's not going to be a decimal in your midpoint. What about 10 and 20? Where there'll be a decimal in your midpoint? What about 0 and 10?
No.
No. No decimal when they're not right next to each other. So what's the midpoint? What? 115 is the midpoint. Okay, so how am I going to compare on this? We could think of this, couldn't we? With zeros. Okay, so which one's larger, the actual or the midpoint? The actual. Okay, so where do I write the actual, Isamar, if it's larger than the midpoint? On the top, good. So 115.376, rounded to the nearest 10, the answer is 120. So down here, 115 and 376 thousandths rounds to 120. Okay, let's take a look at the back side of the problem set. These look like they're manageable, don't you think?
Yes.
Okay, so when I write my actual, I think I'm putting it over here. It's a little bit bigger space. We've not had one with a 0 in the ones place before, have we?
No.
No? Okay. So we've got 994 thousandths. And there's no point in moving the 0 over to the tenths, is there?
No.
So I'll just move the tenths over to the hundredths. Okay, so you're on the back side. You better get going a little faster. I've written several things now. Can you see this okay from where you are? Okay. Who can't? Everyone can? Okay. So I'm going to round to the nearest hundredths place. So I need to find my hundredths and highlight the one with more than one digit. So what am I starting with down here? 99 hundredths. And Cooper, do you know how to write that in standard form, 99 hundredths?
0.99.
Very good. Okay. What comes after 99?
100.
100. So 100 hundredths. And look up here once you get that written, because I'm going to, don't say it if you figure it out, but I'm going to write the number 100, but I'm going to put the 0, the last digit I write is in the hundredths place. So what's the answer? 1. So it equals 1. Okay? Now, are these numbers right next to each other on the number line? Well, they're closer than right next to each other, aren't they? So there's going to be a decimal in my midpoint. Okay? So, Alexis, what do you think the midpoint is?
0.995.
You got it. 995 thousandths. Okay, so on my midpoint, I'm going to write 995 thousandths. Diego is gone? Okay. Zadie, which one's larger, the actual or the midpoint? So if the midpoint's larger, where do I write the actual? You got it. Very good. So I'm going to circle 99 hundredths. So this is what I would write. 994 thousandths rounds to 99 hundredths. Make sense? Okay. All right, take a look at the next place value. What are we looking for?
Kids.
Well, there's only one choice for that. What is it?
9.
9. So 9 tenths equals, how do I write that in standard form, Ruby?
90.
No, that's 9 tens. This is the tenths place. So what will I write? 0.9. Good. What comes after 9 tenths?
10 tenths.
10 tenths. Now, all I have to do to figure out 10 tenths is put the 0 in the tenths place. And so it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yep.
It's a 1. Okay? So halfway between 9 tenths and 1, sit lolly. 0.95. You guys are great. Very good. Okay? So over on my midpoint, I'm going to erase and change it. Maybe. Okay. Diamete, which one's larger, the actual or the midpoint? The actual. So if the actual's larger, where do I write it, Diamete? On top. Very good. Okay, now it says the ones place. What digit is in the ones place?
0.
0. Okay. So if I have 0 ones, that equals 0. And then what comes after 0?
1.
1, 1 equals 1. Now, are these numbers right next to each other on the number line?
Yes.
So you will have a decimal in your midpoint. Miranda, what do you think it is?
0. 1.
Nope. You always have a 5 in your midpoint. So what is it?
0.15.
Just 0.5. You're going to take the 0 and put a 5 on the end of it. But you have to put a decimal there. Okay? This one and the tens are what are confusing kids the most today. All right, so I have 0.5 here. Forgot that, didn't I? Which one's larger?
9.
I could have left that circled. So where do I write it?
And top.
And it rounds to 1. Oh, I forgot to write it last time. Okay, so let's go back and write 1 for our answer. We've got it twice, don't we? Rounds to 1. Okay. Put a star beside this one. It's on your exit ticket. Very similar. The only thing that's different is going to be your actual. Okay, so put a star beside it. When you round to the nearest 10 and there's a 0 in the tens place, I'm going to tell you some mistakes I've been seeing, okay? So I've got 0 tens, right?
Yeah.
So write that down and put a 0 beside it. Kids are doing that fine, okay? What comes after 0?
1.
1, 10. Now here's the mistake I've seen, and I've seen it several times in every block. What did I do wrong?
You didn't even go 0.
I need it to be 1, 10 equals 10, right?
Yep.
One bundle of 10 has 10 in it. Okay? Now here's another mistake I've been seeing. Don't write this.
No, it's 5.
Okay, how do I know there's no decimal in my midpoint?
Because it's 0 to 10.
Because the numbers are not right next to each other on the number line, are they? And so it makes no sense to put a decimal in it when it's whole numbers back from when you were, what, in second grade and first grade?
Yeah.
And you had to learn that 5 was half of 10? Okay, so don't make those two mistakes. Got it? Okay, so my midpoint now is 5. Oh, wow. And like I said, the only thing different on your exit ticket is the actual number you're rounding. So where, Isaac, do I need to write my actual? Above or below the midpoint?
Below.
Below. This number is actually less than 1 whole, isn't it?
Yep.
So I will circle 0. So rounded to the nearest 10, 994 thousandths rounds to 0. Okay, literally, boys and girls, you can copy every bit of this down except for the actual. It's going to be different. So literally, okay, don't be making things harder than they are. We just did it. All right, so let's look at the exit ticket. Let's take a look at it.
Really? Same. Pretty much.
My board is kind of lagging today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, nice of them to put that on there for us, wasn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so here's what we've got. And it's my advice to you to write actual and midpoint. My actual is 8 and 546 thousandths. My advice to you is to do it twice.
Okay.
That way you don't have to erase, and then if you have to correct, I can help you figure out what you did wrong easier. Okay? So the only other thing I want to do, go ahead and get that written down, and then let's highlight what we're rounding. Okay, so this says the hundredths place. So go to the hundredths. What do you think I should highlight? 854. So at the bottom of this, and don't forget to write it as a decimal. Where is your decimal? Between what two numbers?
The 8 and 5.
So don't move it. When you write it down here, put it between those two numbers. Go ahead and write it now so you don't forget. Okay? Now, the tens. What's in the tens?
Zero.
0. So you will have 0 tens. And that's all the help you're getting from me today, boys and girls.
Okay.
Think you can handle it?
Yep.
All right, good job. Bring it to me when you're done.